There are moments at Hogwarts that pass unnoticed by most. Moments so quiet, so gentle, that they seem to exist only for those who slow down enough to feel them. This story begins on one such night, when the castle has settled into its deepest calm, and even the magic that hums through its stones seems to speak in whispers rather than spells. Tonight's tale is about a window, not a grand one overlooking the Black Lake, nor a high tower window watched by owls and stars, but a simple, narrow window tucked along a forgotten corridor. By day, it appears ordinary, framing the familiar Scottish sky like any other. But by night, when the castle grows drowsy and the lamps burn low, this window does something quietly unusual. It looks out on a sky that does not quite belong to the same moment in time. We begin as evening settles over Hogwarts. Lanterns glow softly along the corridors, their light warm and steady against an ancient stone. The last echoes of laughter fade from the staircases as students retreat to common rooms and dormitories. Somewhere far off, the great hall closes its doors for the night, and the castle exhales, relieved to be at rest. Outside, the grounds are wrapped in mist, the lake still and dark, reflecting only the faintest hint of stars. Inside, the corridors hum with a familiar, comforting silence, the kind that feels safe rather than empty. This is the hour when Hogwarts feels most alive in its own way, not bustling, but aware. This story does not hurry. It unfolds the way a peaceful night does, one small detail at a time. There is no danger here, no sharp turns or sudden alarms. Instead, there is curiosity, soft, patient curiosity, and a sense that something gentle is waiting to be noticed. As you listen, allow yourself to slow down. Let the glow of lantern light and the hush of the castle guide you into comfort. If you enjoy these quiet journeys through the wizarding world, you are warmly invited, only if it feels right, to return again, to rest in these stories whenever sleep feels distant or your thoughts feel too loud. For now, imagine walking through a long Hogwarts corridor, your footsteps barely making a sound. At the far end, a single window waits, its glass reflecting a sky that seems slightly different from the one outside. Not brighter, not darker, just elsewhere. And as the castle keeps watch and the night deepens, that window is ready to share its secret, slowly, gently, and only with those willing to listen. Harry Potter had always found comfort in the quiet parts of Hogwarts. While others spoke fondly of Quidditch cheers or bustling feasts in the Great Hall, Harry felt most at ease when the castle slowed down, when the corridors emptied and the magic around him softened into something almost thoughtful. On this particular night, he wandered without a destination, hands tucked into the pockets of his robes, letting his steps carry him wherever the castle felt calmest. Not far behind him walked Hermione Granger, a book held loosely at her side rather than pressed tightly to her chest as it usually was. She wasn't reading tonight. Instead, she was observing. Hermione loved patterns, rules, and explanations, but she had also learned that Hogwarts often saved its most interesting lessons for moments when logic rested and curiosity took the lead. Her eyes lingered on torchlight flickering against stone, on the way shadows stretched and shifted as if breathing. Ron Weasley followed them, both yawning slightly as he went. "I still don't understand why we're not in the common room," he muttered, though there was no real complaint in his voice. Ron liked comfort, and wandering the castle late at night wasn't usually his idea of it. Still, he trusted Harry's instincts and Hermione's curiosity enough to tag along. Besides, there was something oddly relaxing about the quiet, even to him. The three of them had shared countless adventures, but this night felt different. There was no urgency pulling them forward, no looming danger. Instead, there was a gentle sense of expectation, like the moment just before sleep, when thoughts drift freely and the world feels safe. As they turned a corner into a lesser-used corridor, the air grew cooler, fresher somehow. Harry slowed, not because he was afraid, but because something about this place felt attentive. Hermione noticed immediately. "This corridor isn't on any of the usual routes," she said softly. "I've walked past it dozens of times, but I don't think I've ever really been down here." Ron shrugged. "Most people probably don't. It's too quiet." And yet, that was precisely why Harry felt drawn to it. Farther down the corridor, perched on a stone ledge near a narrow window, sat Professor McGonagall's familiar tabby cat. At least, that's what Harry thought at first. The cat lifted its head, eyes catching the lantern light, and for a moment, it seemed to study them with quiet intelligence before turning back toward the window. Hermione smiled faintly. "That's interesting." Ron frowned. "What is?" Hermione nodded toward the cat. "She wouldn't be here if nothing was happening." Harry felt a warmth spread through his chest. Not excitement, not fear, but recognition. Hogwarts had a way of gathering the right people in the right places, especially when something gentle and old was about to stir. Together, they continued forward, unaware that this simple walk, this quiet choice to wander rather than rest, had placed them exactly where they needed to be. Somewhere ahead, a window waited. And with the corridor grew quieter the closer they came to the window, as if the castle were slowly lowering its voice for whatever waited there. The torches along the walls burned in their usual iron brackets, yet their flames seemed calmer here, steady, almost sleepy, casting a honeyed glow that softened the stone and made every shadow feel gentle rather than sharp. Harry slowed without meaning to. The tabby cat on the ledge remained perfectly still, tail curled neatly around its paws, gaze fixed on the glass. It looked less like a pet and more like a patient guardian, posted here simply to witness. Hermione stepped closer first, careful not to startle it. "Hello," she murmured, not expecting a response. The cat blinked once, slowly, then returned its attention to the window, as if Hermione's greeting had been acknowledged and filed away as unimportant compared to what lay beyond. Ron rubbed his eyes. "So, what exactly are we doing here?" he whispered, though whispering in Hogwarts corridors at night felt almost automatic, like a rule everyone followed without being told. Harry didn't answer right away. His eyes had gone to the window. It was narrow and tall, framed by thick stone, the glass slightly uneven in the way old castle windows often were. During the day, it would have shown the grounds and the distant line of trees, the Scottish sky changing from pale to gray to rain without much ceremony. But tonight the sky beyond it looked wrong. Not frighteningly wrong, not like anything broken, just different. The darkness outside was deeper than it should have been. The stars were there, but they didn't sit where Harry expected. It was as though someone had taken the familiar sky and turned it a few degrees, shifting the constellations into an unfamiliar arrangement. And behind them, barely visible, there was a faint wash of color, soft, dreamy hues that did not belong to midnight. Hermione leaned in, breath fogging the glass for a moment. "That's not right." Ron joined her, squinting. "Looks like the skies had a bit too much butterbeer." Harry lifted a hand and rested it lightly on the cold stone beside the window. The chill grounded him, reminded him this was real. "It's not the normal sky," he said quietly. "It looks like somewhere else." Hermione's eyes narrowed, thoughtful rather than alarmed. "Or somewhen." Ron made a small sound, somewhere between a laugh and a sigh. "Oh, brilliant. Here we go." Hermione ignored him gently, the way she often did when she was following a thread. "The stars," she said, pointing. "That's not where Orion should be." Harry stared. "How do you know where Orion should be?" Hermione gave him a look that was both tired and affectionate. "Harry, I read." Ron muttered, "Of course you do." But even he was staring now, drawn in despite himself. The corridor behind them remained quiet. No footsteps, no portraits gossiping, no suits of armor shifting. It felt as if Hogwarts had placed a soft hand over the space, keeping it still. And then the window did something stranger. The glass shimmered, not like a spell exploding, not like a jinx, more like the way air shivers above a candle flame. The surface of the window rippled once, gently, as though it were water, remembering it had once been part of a river. Hermione's fingers lifted instinctively, hovering near the glass without touching it. "Did you see that?" Ron nodded slowly. "Yep, and I'm pretending I didn't." Harry watched, heart steady. He had faced enough dark magic in his life to know what fear felt like. This wasn't fear. This was curiosity wrapped in quiet. The shimmer came again, and this time, the sky beyond shifted with it. The stars slid, smoothly and silently, rearranging themselves into a different pattern. The colors behind them deepened, turning the darkness into a velvet twilight. And then, slowly, tenderly, the faintest hint of dawn appeared on the horizon. Ron blinked. "Is it sunrise?" Harry glanced back down the corridor. No light spilled in from anywhere else. The castle remained in night. Yet within the frame of that window, a pale, peach-colored dawn began to bloom. Hermione whispered, "It's showing a different time." The tabby cat shifted at last, standing up with quiet grace. It stretched, arching its back, then hopped lightly from the ledge to the floor. It walked a small circle near their feet, unhurried, as if this was exactly what it had been waiting for. Then it sat again, this time facing them, as though inviting them to decide what to do next. Harry felt an odd certainty. This was not a trap. This was an opening. Hermione seemed to sense it too. She took a slow breath and pressed her palm against the glass. Nothing grabbed her, nothing yanked her forward. Instead, the window warmed beneath her touch, as if it had been cold only because no one had ever tried to reach it gently. Hermione's expression softened. It's not resisting. Ron stared at her hand like it might vanish. Hermione, maybe don't. It's okay, she said quietly, and her voice carried the calm of someone who knew the difference between reckless and curious. It feels safe. Harry stepped closer and placed his hand beside hers. The warmth spread into his palm, not hot, not uncomfortable, like sunlight on stone after a cold morning. Then the window changed again. The dawn sky beyond brightened, but it wasn't harsh. It was the kind of dawn that feels like a promise. Soft light over distant hills, pale gold spilling across clouds. The horizon looked wider than any view Hogwarts windows should have, and somewhere far away, silhouetted against the light, Harry saw a shape that made his breath catch. A castle, not Hogwarts. At least, he didn't think it was. The towers were different, the angles unfamiliar, the structure older in a way Hogwarts wasn't, like something built when the world still felt half wild and full of untamed magic. Hermione's voice was barely a whisper. That's not on our grounds. Ron leaned in, eyes wide now despite himself. That looks like a different place altogether. Harry felt the air around them shift. The corridor seemed to grow quieter still, as though Hogwarts itself was listening closely. The window rippled again, and the image sharpened. Now they could see details. A stone bridge leading toward it, the distant castle, a line of trees with leaves that shimmered faintly, as if touched with frost or starlight. A sky that carried two pale moons, one high and faded, one low and bright, like a dream refusing to be ordinary. Hermione pulled her hand back slightly, not out of fear, but to test the boundary. The warmth remained on her skin even after she withdrew. This is not a normal window, she said gently, as if saying it too loudly might break the delicate truth of it. Ron gave a small, uncertain laugh. You don't say. Harry kept his hand against the glass. The window seemed to respond to him, the shimmer settling, the view holding steady. And as he stood there, he realized something else. The sky beyond the window didn't feel distant. It felt close, not physically close, emotionally close, like it was looking back. Harry swallowed. It's like it's showing us somewhere the castle remembers. Hermione's eyes flicked toward him, thoughtful. Hogwarts, remembering somewhere? Or someone, Ron added, and his tone was quieter now, more sincere. The tabby cats stood again, moving toward the far end of the corridor, then pausing and looking back at them. A clear invitation, not a command, just a gentle suggestion. Hermione glanced toward the direction the cat had gone. It wants us to follow. Ron sighed, long and dramatic, but there was no real resistance in it anymore. Fine, but if we end up in a broom cupboard with Filch, Harry smiled faintly. We won't. They stepped away from the window, and the warmth faded from their hands, replaced by the familiar coolness of the corridor, but the feeling remained inside Harry, like a quiet glow in his chest. As they walked, the window stayed visible behind them for a moment. Harry glanced back once, half expecting it to snap back to the normal sky. It didn't. The dawn beyond remained, soft, steady, patient, waiting. The tabby cat led them around a bend into an even narrower passage, one Harry had never noticed before. The stones here looked older, darker, and the torchlight seemed to hesitate, as if it didn't often travel this way. The air carried a faint scent of dust and something else, something clean and sharp, like morning, frost. Hermione brushed her fingers along the wall as they walked, as if reading the castle through touch. "This passage shouldn't connect here," she murmured. "I've seen the floor plan." Ron cut in gently. "Since when do you trust Hogwarts to follow a floor plan?" Hermione huffed softly, but there was a smile in it. Fair point. At the end of the narrow passage, the tabby cat stopped before a small archway. Beyond it was a little alcove, almost like a resting place in the wall, and in the center of that alcove, another window, smaller than the first, rounder. Its glass was cloudy, as if no one had cleaned it in years. Yet behind that cloudiness, something moved faintly, like light shifting behind curtains. Harry stepped closer, and as he did, the cloudy surface cleared just a little, and he saw the sky again. Not the dawn sky this time, a night sky, brighter, fuller, where the stars looked closer, almost within reach. The constellations here formed patterns Harry didn't recognize at all, like a language written in light. Hermione's breath trembled slightly, not with fear, but with wonder. "It's not the same view." Ron stared, voice low. "So, how many skies does Hogwarts have hidden in its walls?" Harry didn't answer, because in that moment, with the second window clearing slowly and the unfamiliar stars shining through, he felt the first true twist settle into place. This wasn't just a window that faced a different sky. It was a doorway to the castle's memories, quietly offering them a choice to look beyond what they thought they knew and to follow the gentlest kind of mystery. And the night, calm and watchful, seemed ready to show them more. The second window did not rush them. That was the first thing Harry noticed as they stood before it, gathered in the narrow alcove like guests who had arrived early and were content to wait. The glass held its cloudy softness, clearing only enough to show the unfamiliar stars beyond. It did not brighten further. It did not ripple. It simply remained, calm and patient, as if it trusted them to decide when and how to look closer. The tabby cat sat beside the alcove, tail tucked neatly around its paws. Its eyes were half closed now, not asleep, but resting in that watchful state cats seemed to prefer when they knew something important was happening. Hermione spoke first, her voice barely louder than breath. "This one feels different." Ron nodded slowly. "Yeah, the other window felt like it was showing us something. This one feels like it's waiting." Harry shifted his weight, the stone floor cool through the soles of his shoes. The air here felt thicker somehow, not heavy, but layered, like many quiet moments stacked gently on top of one another. "What if it's not about looking?" Harry said. Hermione turned toward him. "What do you mean?" He searched for the right words, letting them arrive rather than forcing them. The first window showed us a place. This one feels like it's asking something. Ron raised an eyebrow. Asking what? Harry looked back at the glass. The stars beyond seemed to pulse faintly, not in brightness, but in presence. Who we are, he said softly, or maybe what we remember. Hermione inhaled, slow and thoughtful. Hogwarts is full of enchantments tied to memory, she said. Portraits, staircases, even the walls respond to people who've been here long enough. Maybe this isn't showing a place at all. Maybe it's showing a moment. The idea settled into the space between them, not alarming, just quietly profound. Ron rubbed the back of his neck. Brilliant. A window that wants us to get emotional. Hermione smiled faintly at him, but her eyes were still on the stars. Memories don't have to be frightening, she said. Some of them are gentle. As if responding to her words, the glass warmed again, slightly warmer than before, like a stone that had been holding sunlight all day. Hermione lifted her hand, hesitated for just a heartbeat, then pressed her palm flat against the surface. This time, the window responded immediately. The stars beyond dimmed, not disappearing, but softening, until the glass reflected Hermione's face instead. For a moment, Harry thought it was just a reflection. But then the image changed. Hermione blinked. The reflection was no longer her, as she was now. It was Hermione, as a first year, bushy-haired, eyes wide, Hogwarts robes a little too long at the sleeves. She stood in the image clutching a stack of books nearly as tall as her chest, glancing around with an expression that held equal parts excitement and nervous determination. Ron let out a quiet, involuntary laugh. Blimey, you really did look like that. Hermione didn't answer. Her breath had caught, not sharply, just softly, as though she had stumbled upon a memory she hadn't realized she was holding so carefully. The image shifted. Now first-year Hermione sat alone at a table in the library, candlelight flickering nearby as she read late into the night. The scene was peaceful, almost tender. No danger, no urgency. Just a girl discovering a place where she finally felt like she belonged. The warmth from the glass spread into Hermione's hand, and her shoulders relaxed without her noticing. It's not just showing memories, she whispered. It's choosing them. The image faded gently, and the glass clouded again. Hermione stepped back, eyes shining, not with tears, but with recognition. Ron swallowed. I suppose that means it's my turn? The tabby cat opened one eye, then the other, as if approving the idea. Ron approached the window with exaggerated caution, then sighed and placed his hand against the glass. All right, let's have it over with. The glass warmed beneath his palm. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the stars returned and rearranged themselves into something that looked almost like a familiar ceiling. The image sharpened. Ron saw himself, small, red-haired, standing at the foot of a long table in the great hall. His face was a mix of hope and disbelief as the sorting hat slipped down over his ears. Harry felt a small smile tug at his lips. He remembered that moment clearly. The image shifted again. Now Ron sat in the common room late at night, laughing so hard he nearly fell off a chair as Fred and George demonstrated some half-finished joke product. The fire crackled warmly, the room glowed with laughter and belonging. Then another shift. Ron stood on the Hogwarts grounds, older now, staring out across the lake with a thoughtful expression Harry rarely saw on his face. There was no fear in it, just quiet consideration, the kind that came when someone was realizing they were braver than they had ever believed. Ron's hand trembled slightly against the glass. "Oi," he muttered, not looking away. "I didn't say it could show that one." That's it. Warmth lingered, steady and reassuring, as if the window were reminding him that these memories were his, whether he acknowledged them or not. The image softened and faded. Ron stepped back, rubbing his eyes. "Right," he said hoarsely. "That was something." Hermione reached out and squeezed his arm. He pretended not to notice, but didn't pull away. Harry was already stepping forward. He didn't know what the window would show him, and he wasn't sure he wanted to know. His life held memories that were heavier than most. But the calm of the alcove, the patient presence of the cat, the gentle warmth of the glass, all of it suggested this was not a place for pain. He placed his hand against the window. The warmth came immediately, stronger this time, but still soft. The stars beyond dimmed, and then Harry saw a small cupboard under the stairs. The image was quiet. Dust motes drifted in a thin beam of light. A young boy sat on the floor, knees drawn to his chest, reading by the faint glow of a torch. There was sadness there, but also something else. A spark, a resilience that had no name yet. Harry's throat tightened, but the warmth steadied him. The image shifted. Now, Harry stood in the great hall, candlelight floating above, surrounded by students cheering as his name echoed through the space. He looked overwhelmed, stunned, and very small among it all. Another shift. Harry lay in bed in the Gryffindor dormitory, staring up at the canopy, listening to the distant sounds of the castle settling for the night. For the first time in his life, he looked safe. Hermione inhaled sharply beside him, recognizing the quiet importance of that moment. The final image came gently. Harry stood on the Hogwarts grounds at dawn, older now, looking out across the lake as mist curled over the water. He wasn't holding a wand. He wasn't bracing for a fight. He was simply there, present, at peace. The image faded. Harry withdrew his hand, breath slow and steady. He hadn't realized how much of his story Hogwarts had been holding for him, how carefully the castle had watched him grow, not as a hero, but as a person. The tabby cat stood and stretched again, as if the window's work was done. Hermione looked between them, wonder glowing softly in her eyes. "It's not just a magical window," she said. "It's a keeper." Ron nodded. "Of the good bits." Harry glanced back at the glass. The stars had returned, calm and distant once more, but something else had changed. The window was no longer just showing the sky, it was reflecting them. Their faces appeared faintly in the glass, not sharply, not perfectly, but together, three friends standing close, sharing a moment no one else would ever see. The air shifted again. From somewhere deeper in the castle came a low, resonant hum, not a sound exactly, but a feeling like a note held gently beneath everything else. The walls of the alcove seemed to breathe, the stone warming subtly, as if Hogwarts itself had exhaled. Hermione frowned slightly. "Do you feel that?" Ron nodded. "Yeah, like the castle's settling." Harry's gaze flicked toward the passage they had come from. The corridor beyond looked unchanged, but he had the sense that it wouldn't remain open much longer. "I think this place doesn't want to be visited often," he said quietly. "Just when it's needed." Hermione nodded in agreement. Moments like this aren't meant to be collected. They're meant to be remembered. The tabby cat padded toward the corridor, pausing once to look back at the window. Its eyes lingered on the glass with something like affection. Then it turned and disappeared around the corner. The warmth in the alcove began to fade, not abruptly, but naturally, like a fire burning down to embers. The glass clouded again, slowly returning to its earlier, unremarkable state. The stars vanished behind a soft gray sheen. Ron exhaled. "So, it's over?" Hermione smiled gently. "Not over, just complete." Harry felt it too, a sense of closure, like finishing a book and placing it back on the shelf, knowing it would still be there when needed. As they turned to leave, Harry glanced back one last time. For just a heartbeat, the glass cleared again, not to show the sky, but to show Hogwarts itself. Warm lights glowing in windows, staircases curling gently, banners stirring softly in unseen drafts. Then it clouded, and the alcove became just another quiet corner of the castle. But Harry carried the feeling with him as they walked away. The second twist now fully revealed. Hogwarts was not only a place of magic and mystery, it was a living keeper of gentle truths, offering reflection instead of challenge, memory instead of danger, and reminding those who listened that even in a castle full of wonders, the most powerful, magic was simply being seen, understood, and quietly held. They did not speak as they left the alcove, not because there was nothing to say, but because whatever words might come felt unnecessary, like trying to explain the warmth of a fire while still standing in its glow. The corridor welcomed them back with the same muted quiet it had held before, though Harry could have sworn the walls seemed a little closer now, as if listening. Their footsteps were soft, almost careful, echoing only faintly along the stone floor. The torches lining the corridor burned low and steady, their flames no longer flickering as they usually did, but holding themselves in calm, unmoving shapes. It gave the impression that time here flowed differently, not slower, exactly, but more gently. Ron was the first to break the silence, though his voice was still subdued. "You know," he said, "I don't think I've ever walked through Hogwarts like this before." Hermione glanced at him. "Like what?" "Like it's watching us," he replied, not uneasy, just thoughtful. Not in a creepy way, more like a librarian who's noticed you've taken a book you really needed. Hermione smiled softly at the comparison. "That's surprisingly accurate." Harry didn't add anything, but he felt the truth of it settle comfortably in his chest. Hogwarts had always been alive to him, but never quite like this. Not reactive or dramatic, just present, a quiet companion walking alongside them. They turned a corner and Harry slowed instinctively. The corridor ahead looked almost the same as the one they had just left, but something subtle had changed. The ceiling arched slightly higher, the stone smoother, as though worn down not by centuries of footsteps, but by countless quiet moments passing through it. The air carried a faint scent, old parchment, candle wax, and something else he couldn't quite name. Memory, perhaps. Hermione noticed it too. "This passage isn't on any of the castle maps," she murmured. "I'm sure of it." Ron snorted quaintly. "That's never stopped this place before." As they continued, the gentle suspense grew, not as tension, but as anticipation. The corridor seemed to stretch and fold in ways that didn't quite align with ordinary space. Windows appeared briefly along the walls, though none showed the night sky. Instead, they reflected dim shapes, arches, stairwells, doorways that didn't exist anywhere else in the castle. Each reflection lingered only for a moment before smoothing back into plain stone. Harry paused by one such window. "Do you think there are other places like the alcove?" Hermione studied the glass, careful not to touch it. "Possibly, or memories of places. Hogwarts doesn't separate the two very well." Ron peered in, squinting. "I see a staircase, or half of one." The image blurred and faded before any of them could look closer. They moved on, the corridor subtly guiding them, not pushing, not pulling, just gently suggesting a direction. The floor sloped downward now, almost imperceptibly, and the temperature dropped just enough to be noticeable, like stepping into the shade after standing in sunlight. Harry became aware of a low hum beneath everything else. Not a sound exactly, but a sensation, like standing near a sleeping creature and feeling the rise and fall of its breath. "Is it just me?" Ron whispered, "or does it feel like we're getting closer to something?" Hermione nodded. "Closer," she agreed, "but not to an end, to a center." The idea made Harry think of the heart of the castle, not the great hall or the headmaster's office, but something deeper and quieter, a place Hogwarts kept for itself. They reached a fork in the corridor. To the left, the passage narrowed, the stone darkening slightly, the air cooler. To the right, it widened, opening into a space softly lit by unseen sources, warm and inviting. Ron gestured to the right. "That one looks friendlier." Hermione tilted her head, considering. "Yes, which is precisely why I think we shouldn't go that way." Ron sighed. "Figures." Harry looked between the two paths. Neither felt dangerous, neither felt wrong, but the narrower passage carried a deeper resonance, like a note that matched the hum beneath their feet. "That way," he said quietly, nodding left. Hermione met his gaze and smiled. "I thought so too." They turned into the narrower corridor. The walls here were closer, etched faintly with symbols, not runes exactly, but patterns that seemed to shift when looked at directly. Harry tried to focus on one, but it slipped from his attention, like a half-remembered dream. As they walked, the hum grew stronger, not louder, just clearer. It felt less like a vibration now, and more like a presence walking with them. Ron slowed his steps. "You don't think this is leading us somewhere we shouldn't be, do you?" Hermione answered calmly. "I think it's leading us somewhere that doesn't mind being found. The corridor curved gently, and then, without any dramatic reveal, it opened into a small circular chamber. The room was simple, no grand carvings, no towering ceiling, just smooth stone walls, a low domed roof, and a single bench carved into the curve of the wall. In the center of the room stood a shallow stone basin, empty except for a thin layer of clear water that reflected the ceiling above. The hum seemed to gather here, settling into the space like a held breath. Harry stepped closer to the basin. The water was still, perfectly smooth, reflecting not his face, but the ceiling, though the reflection was wrong. The stone above appeared older, cracked, as if showing the chamber at a different point in time. Hermione knelt beside him. "It's not showing us ourselves," she said softly. "It's showing the room remembering itself." Ron leaned against the wall, suddenly looking very tired, though not unwell. "So what do we do? Drink it? Touch it? Sit politely and wait?" Harry smiled faintly. "I don't think it wants us to do anything." As if agreeing, the hum softened. The water in the basin rippled, not from movement, but from memory. Images drifted across its surface, faint and fleeting, students passing through the chamber long ago, pausing here without knowing why. A professor sitting on the bench, lost in thought. A child standing alone, finding comfort in the quiet. None of the images lingered long enough to demand attention. They came and went like passing clouds. Hermione exhaled slowly. This place isn't about action, she realized. It's about pause. Ron sank onto the bench with a soft thump. Finally, a magical place that understands me. Harry remained by the basin, watching the reflections settle. The gentle suspense lay not in what might happen next, but in what might be asked of them, not aloud, but inwardly. The room seemed to wait, not impatiently, but attentively, as though listening for something they hadn't yet said. Harry closed his eyes for a moment. In the quiet, he felt the weight of everything he had seen, the memories in the window, the living presence of the corridors, the calm intelligence of the castle itself. None of it asked him to be a hero. None of it asked him to fight. It simply asked him to be here. When he opened his eyes again, the water in the basin was perfectly still. The hum had faded to a gentle echo, like the last vibration of a struck bell. Hermione rose slowly. "I think we're meant to leave now." Ron nodded, standing as well, before it turns into something dramatic. Harry glanced around the chamber one last time, committing its quiet simplicity to memory. He knew he would never find this place again, not because it would vanish, but because it would only reveal itself when needed. As they stepped back into the corridor, the chamber behind them seemed to soften, its edges blurring slightly, like a thought drifting away. The corridor guided them upward now, the slope gentle, the air warming gradually. The hum did not return, but its absence felt peaceful, not empty. By the time they reached a familiar intersection near a well-known staircase, the corridor behind them had smoothed itself into an ordinary wall. Ron stared at it. "You reckon anyone would believe us?" Hermione smiled. "I hope not." Harry felt a quiet certainty settle within him. The suspense had not been about danger or discovery. It had been about trust. Trusting the castle, trusting the quiet, trusting that some mysteries were not meant to be solved, only experienced. And as they rejoined the living, breathing corridors of Hogwarts, Harry knew that whatever waited ahead would be gentler for having been here, for having listened, and for having allowed the castle to show them not its secrets, but its heart. They returned to the familiar parts of Hogwarts with the softness of people waking from a pleasant dream. The ordinary corridors felt warmer now, as though the castle had quietly adjusted itself around them, no longer a maze of stone and staircases, but a resting place that understood how to hold silence. A staircase nearby shifted with its usual lazy patience, and a portrait above it gave a quiet snore, the painted figure dozing with a book slipping from his lap. The moment was almost funny, but no one laughed loudly. Even Ron's usual grin stayed gentle, like he didn't want to disturb the calm that had followed them out of the hidden chamber. Hermione walked a little slower than usual. She kept glancing at the windows, normal windows now, checking them almost unconsciously, as if expecting one to show a different sky again. But they only reflected torchlight and the blackness outside, steady and ordinary. Harry didn't mind the ordinary. In fact, after what they had just experienced, the normal Hogwarts night felt even more comforting. It was like being wrapped in a familiar blanket after stepping briefly into a colder, clearer air. They paused near an arched window overlooking the grounds. The lake lay in the distance, dark and still. The forbidden forest was a deeper shadow beyond that. Everything looked exactly as it should, and yet Harry couldn't stop thinking of the first window, the one that had offered dawn when the castle was still sleeping. Hermione's voice floated into the quiet. "We have a choice." Ron blinked at her. "We always have a choice." "No," Hermione said softly, turning to face both of them. "I mean, now, about what we do with what we've seen." Harry leaned his shoulder against the cold stone, listening. Hermione continued, her tone calm and thoughtful. "That place, the window, the basin, the corridor, it felt like something the castle doesn't show often. We could try to find it again, map it, test it, work out what triggers it." Ron's eyes widened. "Absolutely not." Hermione gave him a small, patient look. "I'm not saying we should. I'm saying we could." Harry knew what she meant. Hermione was a person who liked to understand. It was part of her comfort, the way some people liked to know the ending of a story before they began. And yet, Hermione's gaze softened as she looked back toward the corridor they'd come from. But it didn't feel like a puzzle to solve. It felt like something that would disappear the moment we treated it like a trophy. Ron nodded quickly, relieved. "Thank you." Harry considered it carefully. The gentle suspense from earlier had not been the kind that demanded answers. It had been the kind that invited presence. "I don't want to chase it," he said quietly. Hermione's shoulders eased, as if she'd been holding tension she hadn't realized was there. "Neither do I," she admitted, "but I think we do need to choose something." Ron frowned. "Choose what? Whether we tell anyone?" Hermione nodded. "Exactly." Ron's immediate response was predictable. "No, absolutely not. If we tell anyone, you know what happens? People come. People try to see it. People get loud. Someone starts a rumor. Someone else starts a club. Then next thing you know, Filch is sniffing around and the whole thing gets ruined. Hermione actually smiled at that. That is strangely realistic. Ron looked pleased, then added more softly, also, it felt like it was ours, like the castle gave us a quiet gift, and you don't hand that sort of thing around like chocolate frog cards. Harry felt a warm appreciation for Ron's words. There was honesty in them, and a kind of instinctive respect that Ron didn't always get credit for. Hermione turned to Harry. "What do you think?" Harry looked out the window at the night sky. This sky, the normal one. Stars scattered like small silver pins. He thought of the other skies they had seen, the two moons, the dawn, the unfamiliar constellations that felt like a language. "I think Hogwarts wanted to remind us of something," he said slowly. Hermione tilted her head. "What?" Harry searched for it. It wasn't a lesson in the usual sense. Not a spell, not a secret passage for sneaking, not even a clue to something hidden. It wanted to remind us that it holds more than rooms and staircases, he said. It holds people, moments, parts of us, and maybe, he paused, letting the thought settle, maybe it wanted us to remember the good bits, on purpose. Ron swallowed, glancing away like he didn't want anyone to notice the feeling that rose in him. "Well," he said, voice rougher than before, "it did a good job." Hermione's eyes softened. "So our choice is to keep it private," she said, "and to treat it like it asked us to, gently." Harry nodded. "Yes." Ron let out a long breath, relieved and sleepy now that the decision had been made. "Good, because I'm about 10 minutes away from falling asleep on this floor." Hermione chuckled quietly. "Then we should head back." They began walking again, but their pace remained slow, unhurried. Hogwarts at night seemed to encourage that, like the castle itself was pleased when students moved quietly and listened. As they passed a suit of armor, it shifted slightly, not startlingly, but as if adjusting its posture. A faint clink echoed. Ron instinctively glanced at it, then relaxed when nothing else happened. Hermione moved closer to Harry as they walked. "Do you ever feel like Hogwarts knows when we need something?" Harry glanced at her. "Yes," he said simply. Hermione smiled, small and sincere. "Me too." At a staircase that led toward Gryffindor Tower, they paused again. This time, the choice felt smaller, but somehow important. Ron gestured toward the stairs. "Common room?" Hermione hesitated. "Or we could go to the library," she said, then immediately looked slightly embarrassed at herself, as if realizing she had just revealed her most Hermione instinct at the worst possible time. Ron groaned. "Hermione." She raised her hands in surrender. "I'm joking, mostly." Harry smiled. "Common room." They climbed the stairs together, the castle quiet around them. The higher they went, the warmer the air became, and the more familiar the sounds were. Distant murmurs, the soft crackle of a fire, the gentle creak of old wood. When they finally reached the portrait of the fat lady, she blinked sleepily at them. "You're out late," she said, voice drowsy. Harry gave her a gentle smile. "We just needed a bit of air." She yawned widely. "Well, "Don't track mud in. Password?" Hermione said it softly, and the portrait swung open. The common room welcomed them like a sigh, firelight glowing, chairs and sofas arranged in cozy clusters, a few students dozing with books open on their laps. It felt safe, warm, and real. Ron sank into an armchair immediately. "That," he said, pointing weakly at the fire, "is the best kind of magic." Hermione sat on the edge of a sofa, still thoughtful. Harry remained standing for a moment, looking around at the room that had held so many of their nights, good ones and difficult ones, ordinary ones and extraordinary ones. And in the quiet comfort of Gryffindor Tower, Harry felt their choice settle into place like a blanket pulled gently up to the chin. They would not chase the window that faced a different sky. They would not demand answers from it. They would simply carry its calm with them, letting the memory of it exist the way it wanted to, softly, privately, and only as a reminder that Hogwarts held more wonders than anyone could ever map. Then, with the fire crackling softly and his friends close by, Harry finally allowed himself to sit down and rest. The revelation did not arrive all at once. It came the way sleep does, slowly, gently, without demanding attention, until suddenly you realize you have crossed a quiet threshold. Later that night, long after the common room had settled into silence and the fire had burned low, Harry found himself awake again. Not restless, not uneasy, just aware. A soft awareness, as though something unfinished was breathing patiently in the back of his mind. The dormitory was dark. Ron's familiar snores rose and fell like distant waves, steady and comforting. Seamus shifted once in his sleep. Dean murmured something unintelligible and turned over. Everything was exactly as it should be. And yet, Harry lay still, staring at the faint outline of the canopy above his bed, feeling the echo of that other sky, the one that had shimmered beyond the window, neither past nor future, neither dream nor memory. It had not asked anything of him. It had simply shown itself. Slowly, quietly, Harry sat up. He did not put on his glasses. He did not light his wand. He trusted the darkness. Hogwarts, he had learned, did not mind being seen imperfectly at night. He slipped from the dormitory and down the stairs, his footsteps light, almost apologetic. The castle met him with open stillness. Torches burned low, their flames steady and patient. Portraits slept. Staircases rested in places they rarely stayed long, as though the castle itself was pausing. Harry walked without a plan, or perhaps the plan had already been made for him. He found himself back near the corridor where everything had begun. The place that looked entirely ordinary now. The walls were plain stone. The air smelled faintly of dust and old magic. No glow, no hum, no invitation. Harry stood there for a moment, not disappointed, not surprised, just present. "That's all right," he murmured softly, more to himself than anything else. And then, very gently, he understood. The realization did not strike like lightning. It did not rearrange his thoughts or demand action. It simply settled, warm and steady, like a truth that had been waiting for the right quiet moment to be heard. The window had not shown different skies because it wanted to teach him about time. The corridor had not existed to be discovered. The magic had not been there to be solved. It had been there to hold something. Harry leaned his hand against the stone wall, feeling the coolness seep into his palm. The castle felt solid, real, ancient. It had seen centuries of students pass through its halls, children arriving frightened and leaving changed, carrying joy and loss and hope in equal measure. Hogwarts remembered them all, not as names in books, not as stories retold, but as feelings. The window, Harry realized, had shown them skies that did not belong to any single moment because the castle did not measure time the way people did. For Hogwarts, memory was not behind you. It was around you, woven into the walls, the staircases, the windows, the quiet corners where no one lingered long enough to notice. That basin of light had not reflected futures or pasts. It had reflected states of being, the dawn sky, hope, beginning, the promise of something gentle. The twin moons, balance, companionship, the comfort of not being alone in the dark. The unfamiliar constellations, wonder, curiosity, the reminder that there are still things worth quietly discovering. Harry exhaled slowly, his breath fogging the cool air. The magic had not chosen them because they were special. It had chosen them because they were ready. Ready to sit without asking, ready to look without taking, ready to leave without demanding more. The castle had rearranged itself just enough to offer a reminder, not of power, but of care. Harry felt a soft warmth spread through his chest. For the first time in a long while, the weight he carried, the invisible weight of expectations, memories, survival, felt lighter. Not gone, just acknowledged. "You keep us," he whispered, his voice barely more than breath. The Tesseumbat castle did not answer in words, but a nearby torch flickered gently, not brightening, not dimming, just steadying itself. Somewhere far above, a beam creaked as the castle settled deeper into the night. Harry smiled. He turned to leave, knowing there was nothing more to see here, not because the magic was gone, but because it had already done what it came to do. As he walked back, the corridors seemed warmer, the stone less cold, the silence less empty. When he reached the common room again, he paused at the threshold. The fire was nearly embers now, glowing softly like a heartbeat slowing towards sleep. Hermione sat curled in an armchair, a book forgotten on her lap, breathing evenly. Ron lay sprawled across a sofa, one arm dangling toward the floor, utterly at ease. Harry did not wake them. He did not need to. The insight did not belong to him alone. It belonged to the moment they had shared, the choice they had made, the quiet respect they had shown. He took one last look at the room, at the banners hanging still and peaceful, at the shadows dancing faintly on the walls. And then he understood the final part of the revelation. Some magic exists not to be remembered clearly, but to be felt later. In moments of doubt, in moments of loneliness, in moments when the world feels too loud. The window that faced a different sky would fade from detail. The exact colors, the exact shapes, they would blur with time. But the calm, the reassurance, The sense that the world holds quiet places just for those willing to listen, that would stay. Harry climbed the stairs back to the dormitory, his steps slow, unhurried. He slid into bed and pulled the curtains closed, the fabric soft and familiar. As sleep reached for him, Harry carried the castle's gentle truth with him. That Hogwarts did not only teach spells and history, it taught how to pause, how to listen, how to let wonder exist without possession. And in that understanding, deeper and calmer than any magic he had ever learned, Harry drifted peacefully into sleep. Morning arrived at Hogwarts the way it always did, quietly at first, with no announcement, no fanfare. The sky beyond the high windows lightened from deep blue to soft pearl, and the castle stretched itself awake with gentle creaks and sighs, like an old guardian rising after a long, peaceful rest. Harry woke slowly, without the jolt of urgency that so often followed him into consciousness. For a few moments, he lay still beneath the covers, listening. The dormitory breathed around him, Ron turning over with a soft groan, Seamus muttering something about homework, the distant hoot of an owl outside. Everything felt settled, placed exactly where it belonged. The memory of the window lingered, but not sharply. It was like recalling a dream that had left behind a feeling rather than images, a calm warmth in the chest, a sense of having been gently understood. Harry dressed quietly and made his way down to the common room. The fire had been stirred back to life, glowing low and steady. A few early risers sat scattered around the room, wrapped in scarves and half-awake conversations. Hermione looked up from her book as he entered, her expression soft and knowing, though she said nothing. They did not speak about the corridor. There was no need. At breakfast, the great hall shimmered in its usual morning splendor. Plates filled themselves with toast and porridge, sunlight glinted off goblets, and the enchanted ceiling reflected a sky that was unmistakably familiar, blue, calm, ordinary, in the most comforting way. Harry noticed something else, though. The hall felt quieter, not empty, not dull, just rested. Students spoke in low voices. Laughter rose and faded gently. Even the house banners, rich in color as ever, seemed to hang with a kind of peaceful stillness, unmoving in the air. They did not demand attention, they simply were. As the day unfolded, Hogwarts returned fully to itself. Lessons resumed, staircases shifted, portraits argued and laughed. The castle bustled with life, as it always had. And yet, beneath it all, something remained subtly changed, not altered, but settled. In Professor Flitwick's class, charms moved with graceful ease. In the corridors, students passed one another without hurry. Even the air itself felt kinder, as though the castle had exhaled something old and heavy during the night. Harry found himself noticing small things. The way sunlight pooled on the stone floor near a window, the quiet patience of a suit of armor standing watch, the soft echo of footsteps that never felt lonely. These were not new things. They had always been there, but now they felt more present, less hidden behind worry and expectation. That afternoon, Harry paused near a window overlooking the grounds. Outside, the lake shimmered lazily, and the giant squid's tentacle surfaced briefly before sinking again. Content and unbothered, clouds drifted without urgency. For a moment, Harry thought of the other sky, the one that had shown him balance and wonder and calm. He did not miss it. This sky was enough. The castle did not need to show its secrets again. It had trusted them once, and that trust felt complete. As evening approached, Hogwarts settled into its familiar rhythm. Candles floated into place, fires were lit. The corridors softened into twilight hues of amber and gold. The castle felt warm, held together not just by stone and spellwork, but by shared presence. In the common room that night, Harry sat with Ron and Hermione, their conversation meandering from homework to Hogsmeade plans to absolutely nothing of importance. Ron laughed loudly at something Hermione said. Hermione rolled her eyes, but smiled anyway. Harry leaned back in his chair, listening more than speaking. He felt no pull to search for hidden corridors, no need to understand more. The magic had not been an invitation to continue, it had been a reminder to rest. Later, when Harry finally climbed the stairs to the dormitory once more, he felt a deep, untroubled tiredness. The kind that comes not from exhaustion, but from completion. He lay down, the castle's familiar sounds wrapping around him like a blanket. The walls did not whisper, the air did not hum. Nothing rearranged itself, and that was perfect. Hogwarts stood quietly around him, ancient and steady, holding its students in a calm that did not need to be explained. As sleep arrived, gentle and sure, Harry knew one simple truth. The castle had shown them something not to change their future, but to remind them that peace once felt can always be returned to. And with that understanding, he drifted into rest, the night calm, the world kind, and Hogwarts exactly as it should be. And so the night at Hogwarts deepened into something soft and reassuring, the kind of night that asks nothing of you except rest. The castle did not stir again. It did not shift its corridors or whisper through its stones. It simply remained solid, familiar, and quietly protective. Outside the tall windows, the sky settled into a calm tapestry of stars. They shimmered faintly, not demanding attention, only offering their steady presence. The moon drifted slowly, unhurried, as though it too understood that this was a night meant for stillness. Inside the dormitory, the gentle rhythm of sleep took hold. Breathing slowed, thoughts loosened their grip. The worries of the day softened and slipped away, one by one, like pages being carefully closed in a well-loved book. Hogwarts held its students the way it always had, without judgment, without expectation. Every stone, every beam, every quiet corner seemed to say the same comforting thing. You are safe here. You may rest now. There would be lessons tomorrow. There would be laughter, mistakes, discoveries, and small triumphs. But none of that needed attention tonight. Tonight belonged only to calm. If you listen closely, you might imagine the castle itself breathing, slow and steady, matching the gentle rise and fall of your own breath. In and out. Nothing to hurry, nothing to solve. Let your thoughts drift like clouds over the black lake, passing without effort. Let the warmth of candlelight linger in your mind. Let the echoes of quiet corridors fade into something distant and kind. Hogwarts does not need you to watch it. It does not need you to understand its magic. It asks only that you trust it, to carry the night for you, to keep the world steady while you sleep. And so, as the castle rests beneath its star-filled sky, you are invited to rest as well. Sink gently into the calm. Allow your body to grow heavy, your mind to grow light. The story is complete, and nothing more is required. Tomorrow will come when it is ready. For now, the night is peaceful, the magic is quiet, and you are exactly where you need to be. Sleep softly. Hogwarts stands watch